What is up, guys? It has been a while since we've done a live stream here on Nerd of the Rings, but it's good to be back. Pardon my voice. I mowed yard yesterday and got little allergies going on. So I get this little bit deeper baritone voice for you that sounds kind of gunky. But we've got a pretty big news day today in the world of Middle Earth. It's been a while. I can't remember the last time we had two separate projects get updates on the same day. It's been pretty sparse out there lately. But we've got two big pieces of news. One centered around the Lord of the Rings Return to Moria game. Actually, there's a couple pieces of news with that. Hello, everyone in the chat. Thanks so much for joining tonight. The other is War of the Rohirrim, which, yeah, that's kind of the big one. I guess we'll lead off with Rohirrim. Actually, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to announce that next week I'm going to have a very special live stream, and you guys will be the first ones to know about this. It's not even listed publicly on the channel yet, but my mods have the link to it, so they're going to share it. I am going to be live from Oxenmoot next week, which is the Tolkien Society's annual Tolkien conference that happens in Oxford, UK, every year. And I'm going to be broadcasting live from the Lamb and Flag pub in Oxford, which is really cool. If you're not familiar, that is one of the famed watering holes of famous authors such as J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. So we're going to be live from the Lamb and Flag, and joining me for the first chunk of the stream is going to be Mr. Brian Sibley, who's been on the channel a couple times. We're going to be talking about a little bit more about Fall of Numenor and his process there, but also about his presentation that he's giving at Oxenmoot. So if you're unable to attend, Oxenmoot in person, you can always register online, by the way. That's a great way to get access to that, because I know Brian's, among others, will be online as well. But you can always tune into the live stream. For all my European friends who complain about streams like this that are very super late in the night for them, this is going to be yours, because it's going to be at 10:30 a.m. UK time, which will be 5:30 a.m. here on the East Coast. So it'll be an early one for the US folks, or late night, however you look at it. But all right, well, let's get to big news about War of the Rohirrim. Um, War of the Rohirrim, if you're not familiar, it is an anime film that is coming out next year. And until today, the announced release date was April 12th, 2024. However, today Warner Brothers announced a bunch of shuffling. I'm going to pull up one of the articles here. I know Deadline had a piece on it. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Here we go. There we go. All right. So, yes, War of the Rohirrim is delayed until December 2024. So, it will be coming out on December 13th. So, make the adjustment in your phone calendar, which I'm sure you have. It's a Lord of the Rings film. You probably have it in your calendar, don't you? So make the adjustment. This goes hand in hand. There's a bunch of things listed in here. Dune Part 2 is a big one. Apparently there's a new Godzilla King Kong movie. So if you like giant monsters fighting each other, that'll be moving into the Rohirrim slot of April 12th. And then War of the Rohirrim will be December 13th next year. Personally, I'm not too fussed about this. I'll start a poll. What do you guys think? Do you want this as soon as possible? Like, does this bum you out that we're not getting this in April like we thought? Personally, like, yes, I want to see it as soon as possible. I kind of think this gives them time to further polish the product, though, and to get the animation as good as possible. I mean, we've seen some excellent animated films over the last few years, um, and I would love for this to be one of those that comes out and just rocks. Um, so yeah, I'm not too fussed about it. Honestly, I think going to see a Lord of the Rings film in December just feels right. So, yeah, it's an extra, what is that, like 8 months, something like that. It's a long time. It's over a year now. We were all pumped about, it being less than a year till War of the Rohirrim. I was a little bummed that they didn't have any presence at Comic-Con or anything like that. Um, but this doesn't surprise me all that much. Like I said, it gives the animators, yeah, during the 7th, gives the animators some breathing room. Um, yeah, animators are notoriously overworked in the industry. So the fact that they're getting some breathing room um, is great. And I think it's a smart move. I honestly, looking at another one of my favorite fandom, Star Wars. I think when they had the Han Solo movie come out in the summer instead of in December, I think that hurt the box office for that one pretty bad. So yeah, releasing a Lord of the Rings film when it's coming out in theaters, I think December is the way to go. Like that's perfectly in line. Mid-December is when all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies came out, and people, I think, even people, who aren't as into anime, I would say I'm one of those who's not as into anime. I'll, watch one or two here and there, every couple of years or so. But it's not like something that I consume a lot of. But I think a lot of folks who are interested in Lord of the Rings who might not necessarily be interested in anime will go to see this film in part, due to the nostalgia of the timing going in December. Um, yeah, Scott. No, I'm not saying that that's the only reason that Solo failed. Like, yeah, we could do a whole stream, but we're talking mostly about Lord of the Rings here. But we could go on for quite a while with what strategies in the sequel era have kind of shot the Star Wars franchise in the foot. But Philip asks, when are you talking Ahsoka Gandalf with Theory? Oh, that would be pretty cool, actually. Um, yeah, there's some cool parallels there between Ahsoka and Gandalf, and I absolutely love. There's been a couple times, like one, I think Dave Filoni drew a sketch of Gandalf sitting on a log with Yoda talking. But my favorite one is, when he drew the sketch. This was back when, like, Ahsoka seemed to die in Rebels, and he drew this sketch with Gandalf and Ahsoka, and Gandalf saying, "People thought I was dead too," or something like that. And then at the end of Rebels, Ahsoka's there dressed like looking straight up like Gandalf the White. I was really bummed that in the spoiler alert, guys. So the premiere for Ahsoka came out, but this is a small, so not really a big spoiler. But Ahsoka did not wear the all white Gandalf outfit, and I was a little bummed about that. But yeah, no, I'd love to talk with Theory about Ahsoka Gandalf. That'd be cool. Um, all right. So, yeah, what do you guys think? I'm gonna start a poll. Is Rohirrim moving to December a good thing or a bad thing? We'll make it simple like that. That's as simple as I can put it. Notorious Chill, member for 28 months. Wow. That's kind of crazy that I feel like it's a little crazy. I've had a channel for 28 months, but man, that's you got on early for sure. It's been a little over 3 years now. 3 years? Yeah. A little over 3 years. Thank you so much for your support. Arvid asks where I got the shirt. Yes, this is my directed by Peter Jackson shirt. I got this at Comic-Con at the One Ring booth. They were selling these. I think I got a picture of Jed Brophy and I rocking these shirts. They're pretty fun. They're nice and simple. I like simple t-shirts. Alicia, so close to 1 million subs. Yeah, we just crossed 971,000 today. So we're getting there. It'll be fun. Dark Car, thank you so much for the super sticker. Yeah, don't forget to hit the like, folks. Now we are do we have a do we have a choice regarding the new release date? No, so go with it. Yeah, no, that's true. We do not have a choice. But yeah, it's interesting to hear people's thoughts, you know. I think most folks would rather, especially with Tolkien, I feel like even more than some other properties, like we'd rather see it done good than done fast. And I think that seems pretty logical and pretty obvious, I guess, but I don't know. I think it bears repeating sometimes. All right, let's talk about Return to Moria, which is our second bit of news today. Technically our third. If we're gonna count the fact that I'm gonna be live streaming from Oxymoot, which is pretty fun. All right. Yeah, Tony says, happy to wait an extra 8 months for something that's going to be with me for a lifetime. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I would much rather them take the extra time, get the thing just as great as possible. Don't rush it out trying to, hit some arbitrary date and just make it awesome, man. That's what I want. I just want to go and be swept away into Middle Earth in a really good story. And I think the story of Helm Hammerhand is a great self-contained story. And the story of this time period in Rohan is a great self-contained story. I might do a video on this later, but there's some interesting connections that I think without hopefully, as long as they're not too heavy-handed with it, I think there's some moments where it will actually enhance the viewing of Lord of the Rings at certain points with the Rohirrim, knowing this history behind the Rohirrim. There's certain things with the Mumiks and the devastation that Rohan sees, that when there comes certain lines or certain moments in Lord of the Rings, those moments will hit harder having seen War of the Rohirrim, if they do a good job and if they, connect those dots well. Obviously that's the hope. So now it comes down to the execution, which is always the case, whether that's TV, video games, what have you. But next we have video games. So we had 13 minutes of gameplay posted by IGN of the Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. So I wanted to play a little bit of this. We're not going to watch the whole thing. The admins, the mods here, they have the link to the IGN video. So if you want to go watch it with all the audio and watch it completely through without me jabbering the whole time, you can you can do that here after the stream. But some things that I noticed right off the bat is, of course, the map. Like, I'm a map guy, obviously. I like maps. What can I say? So this is certainly a Fourth Age map. We know this takes place in the Fourth Age. It's all about the dwarves reclaiming Moria after the fall of Sauron. And we have some clues, some really nice, call outs to the fact that this is the fourth age. For instance, we have Arnor and Gondor are represented in one long, sprawling title here: Reunited Kingdom of Gondor and Arnor. So that's Aragorn is presumably still ruling because he lives to be like 210 years old, so he might still be alive at this point. And he's reunited the northern kingdom of Arnor. A good chunk of that is the Shire, obviously. And then we've got Gondor in the south. The other thing I noticed is it seems like we have kind of like these gems. They almost give off like an Arkenstone look to me, that seem to indicate dwarven settlements. So obviously we have Moria here, which is the focus of the game. But then we've got Erebor, we've got the Blue Mountains. So, excuse me, the section of the Blue Mountains where Thorin's father Thrain leads them after the Battle of Azanabalzar. That is right here. And then we also have the Glittering Caves right down here, which is where Gimli rules from. And the other big news today, guys, that was on an interview with one of the developers of Return to Moria is that John Rhys-Davies is returning to voice Gimli in the game. And I am super pumped about that. We actually, if you've seen the interview that I did with John, we actually talked about, he read a little bit from the books that's not in the movies, and we talked about Gimli, bits of his character that weren't in the films. And he joked at the time, now you're going to make me want to play the part again. And I said, maybe in an animated series or something. And this isn't an animated series, but it's kind of the next closest thing. So John Rhys-Davies is returning to voice Gimli. Yeah. And he's the one that like sends us on the quest. Like he's, as was described in the interview today, I think it released early this morning. He basically his life is winding down, and thank you, Alicia, for posting that interview. So if you guys want to watch the full interview, but Gimli's life is winding down, and he kind of senses this that the time has finally come for the dwarves to reclaim Moria. So he's assembling dwarves to go out and reclaim Moria. So he's ruling here from the Glittering Caves. John Rhys-Davies voicing him. I absolutely love that. And then the one we also have the Iron Hills that we know about. That's where Dane Ironfoot was from before he became king in Erebor. And then there's one out here that kind of indicates the dwarves that live in the Far East, like in Rune, which is really cool. So yeah, and there's like a little note with an arrow pointing here. So I wonder if it says something like, we don't know exactly where this is. It's that way. So there we go. Andrew Carlisle, thank you so much for your support. 20 months, man. We've got some long timers in the chat here today. So yeah, there we go. We've got this great map. We have Lorien. Let me go back just a second here. We've got Lorien, and I love that they relabeled Dol Guldur is now Amon Lanc. So that is the original name for Dol Guldur was Amon Lanc before it was taken over by Sauron. And the Wood of Green Leaves is now labeled instead of Mirkwood, because it is no longer Mirkwood. It's been cleansed. So it is the Wood of Green Leaves, also known as Erin Las Gallen. So there's your Elvish lesson for today. All right. So I'm just glancing over to see if there's anything else. I don't think. I don't think so. And then we get a closer look. Oh yeah, here we got Amon Lanc too. Yeah, so then we get into some gameplay here. Right away. Guys can start chiseling away. They also revealed that that your dwarves can sing. and like singing makes the mining easier, or like it takes less stamina, or it's something like that. I can't remember. It's in the interview. If you guys go watch the interview, um, but yeah, so like singing is a big part of it, which I love because songs are a big deal in Tolkien's world. There's songs throughout the books if you read the books. And so they have like dwarven working songs and stuff that you can sing while you're mining. I have to say, like they're already better than all. Here we go.
A day of toil by pick and soil, whatever or till days end way. Hey, when the work is done, ale in my hand by the hearth.
Oh, that's funny. Oh man, I'm gonna be singing like crazy in this game. This could be my jam. I think there's a lot of promise to this game. I've said this before. I think the fact that it's multiplayer, and we'll get into some of that footage here in a little bit. I think yeah, here we go. We've got some multiplayer elements too. I love that they're just hanging out drinking ale. But it's like this survival game. It kind of comes across to me like what I'm pretty sure my kids play in Minecraft. Um, this it seems like someone said, "Hey, Matt, you're old and not cool enough to play Minecraft. So here's a game that you can play and do the same thing your kids do when they play." Um, in a Lord of the Rings way, which I absolutely love. Oh, here we've got some combat. All right. Go get that orc. Go get him. We get some menus there. Okay. Yes, Brown Eyes of Mandalore brought up a great thing from the interview. If you go watch the interview, Jean Paul, the guy getting interviewed about the game, says you can actually set it so your dwarf only speaks Khuzdul, which is awesome. Like, I not to like rag on Gollum endlessly, but it's gonna happen because it's the last Lord of the Rings game that came out. But like having to pay extra for Sindarin was ridiculous. Um, so yeah, the fact that like Khuzdul is not beyond behind a paywall is legit. It should be default expected. And it seems like the folks at Free Range Games agree. But yeah, I'm really pumped. I think I might have to just straight up make my dwarf speak Khuzdul all the time. Oh man, yeah, I would love to hear the Song of Durin. The Clamavi di Profundis version is amazing. I love that thing. Such a good song. That's my favorite of theirs, actually. Hey, Sergio. Sergio's in the chat. One of the wonderful Tolkien artists whose work you'll see in my videos. Goblinses. Filthy goblinses. Yes. Alicia, has that been closed already? Have they closed the registration to be selected? They do have a closed beta happening for Return to Moria. And I'm not sure. I think the deadline might have been yesterday. Alicia will correct me maybe if I'm wrong. I think I read somewhere where you could have parties up to like 8 people in this. Don't hold me to that because I might be wrong. I want to say it's 8 people. Maybe someone can correct me if they've heard differently. But the fact that you can party up with a bunch of folks, yeah, like I'm itching to try this game. I want to get like 8 other Tolkien YouTubers and we just like simultaneously. Oh yeah, okay. 8 on PC, 4 on PlayStation. There you go. Thank you, Bryce. I want to get like, yeah, I want to get a crazy big group of 8 people. Have a mining party. Epic Kingdom, it does look similar. Yeah, it looks a little bit like Lotro. I think the graphics in this are a little bit more polished. And this is still, the game is still, I guess you would call it beta mode. They haven't done the closed beta yet, obviously, but this isn't the final game. I don't know. I think it looks pretty good actually. Like this already seems a heck of a lot less buggy than playing Gollum. Like I said, I'm not gonna. Sorry to keep crapping on Gollum, but my gosh, there's so many bugs in that thing. It was rough. It was rough. Numendil, you should convince Tom Shippey and Corey Olson to play. I don't know if Tom would. I don't know if he's a big gamer, Tom, but I bet I could get Corey. Corey actually consulted on this game. He helped come up with some story elements, I believe, and things. And they do mention, okay, another fun thing about this game. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here. Another fun thing about this game that was in the interview is that we're gonna run into some of the nameless things from the sounds of it. So it'll be really interesting to see what they come up with design wise. The Watcher in the Water is the only, and I guess he's not technically nameless because we have a name for it, but the Watcher in the Water is the only nameless thing that we get a description of. It's all very vague what Tolkien tells us of the nameless things. But he hints that the Balrog is kind of freaked out by the nameless things. If you read through that passage where Gandalf's describing their flight from the lowest dungeons to the highest peak, that kind of thing, like the Balrog's in a hurry to get the heck out of there. And there's nameless things that like gnaw the bones of the mountain or something. It's something like that. I haven't read that passage in a while, but it's something like that. But yeah, the Balrog, Gandalf, they're fighting and they're both kind of like, yeah, let's get the heck out of here. Let's take this outside. That's the Middle Earth version of let's take this outside. Actually, going back to Helm Hammerhand, he has the Middle Earth. Let's take this outside, and ends the fight in one punch. Spoiler alert for War of the Rohirrim, but yeah, it's gonna be a big moment. Jonas says you should unbox some more Lord of the Rings Hobbit props. I've actually got one coming up. I've got the scabbard of Eomer's sword that came in the mail recently. I'll be showing that one off. It's really cool how it matches up with the sword itself. I'll try to get a link to that one while we're watching this here. But yeah, I definitely have some more. I've got some really exciting ones, including one that has been a white whale of mine for some time. So I won't reveal what that one is, but I do have that to look forward to. I'll drop this in the chat. Here's the link to the Eomer scabbard if you want to check it out. All right, guys. So what I'm curious, we've got some made up dwarf names here. It looks like. What's your dwarf name gonna be? You get to name and customize your dwarf. So tell me in the chat here. We've got 200 people watching right now. Surely we can get at least 100 people giving me some dwarf names. What you got? My dwarf in Lotro is called Kildum. So I don't know if I'll go with that, or maybe I'll come up with like a really ancient dwarf name or an obscure one that's just kind of like listed in a family tree. I feel like a lot of people go with that. Like they get a dwarf name. Nobody goes for like Durin. Well, except Durin the Seventh is in the chat, so maybe there are people who do that. But it's fun to like come up with either your own or like a really obscure one. Yeah, Durin the Seventh probably be Durin. As well, it should be, unless Durin the Seventh is a character in the game, because you shouldn't have simultaneous Durins, right? Because there's reincarnation. Let's see what the names. All right. Brown Eyes Mandalore says is Crimbarum. Wait, Crimbarunum. Nimruzir. Yeah, Durin, Thorin, Gimli, those are going to be popular ones. Cranky, because they wouldn't let you use Grumpy. Sneezy, Dopey. I did not even think about using Snow White dwarf names. It's like disjointed in my head. Like I did not connect the dots when I was thinking of dwarf names. Sitting here thinking like Thrain, Dane, Gimli, Gloin, Owen, Ori, Nori, Drago. That's an interesting one. Like Rocky 4. Azagal. There you go. Now we're talking. Falzur. You guys are coming up with some good ones. Tudoran or not Tudoran. Glindrin. Well, there you go, guys. That's the footage. A little bit of it. That's not the whole thing, obviously. But check it out over on IGN if you guys are interested. Tyrion, like from Game of Thrones. Belagost. Name it after the first age dwarven realm. Baruch-Zagil. It's like combining from Baruch Khazad and Zaraxagil. I like that. Victor, here's a common question. Okay, so the ending track in my videos is called Roaming the Fields, and it's by an artist named Kyle Preston. I licensed that through a site called Artlist, and you can actually find his work on Spotify. So Kyle Preston on Spotify. Check it out, and you'll find a few tracks that I use from time to time in my videos. All right. I'm still reading through dwarf names. I love this. Austri and Vestri. Nice. All right. I want to see excitement level for Return to Moria. Scale of 1 to 10. Right? 1 to 10 works good. All right. Did I do that right? Yeah. Okay. I thought I was missing numbers on the poll for a second there. El Damo. Roger, yes, that's a great question. Let's see. Initially, it is coming out on PS5 and PC, I believe. And we do have a release date as well. That was the other thing. It is coming out October 24th. So that is 2 months from today, actually. And it's going to be digital for PS5 and PC on October 24th, physical release for PS5 on December 5th, and then Xbox consoles will be early 2024. So there you go. Okay, wow. That's pretty good. So we've got 55% are in the 8 to 10 range, 37% in the 5 to 7 range, and then like another 10% anywhere between 0 to 4. So that's pretty strong. Yeah, Gandalf says, I like that the game takes place in the fourth age. Yeah, I think the thing that I like about Return to Moria is part of what I like about War of the Rohirrim, in that these are two stories that are self-contained. They don't have to tie heavily into the Lord of the Rings story. And for a one-off, I think that's a good approach. Like, you don't have to, feature all these cameos and stuff from Gandalf and have just obligatory cameos and stuff. Like, we'll get Gimli because it makes sense to have Gimli. Now, they're tweaking the timeline a little bit. For those curious, Gimli does sail west with Legolas before the dwarves go to retake Moria. I think there's a difference there of about 50 to 100 years. I can't remember the exact number of years, but so they're cutting out a gap a little bit, kind of like what Peter Jackson did with the 17 years that the ring spends in the Shire with Frodo. But if it's a matter of, having Gimli voiced by John Rhys Davies, like, start this venture and like hype you up at the beginning of the game, and not, I would much rather have Gimli as John Rhys Davies as Gimli hyping me up at the beginning of the game. So that's a change that I'm 100% okay with. Yeah, Alicia, there are 2 other Lord of the Rings games in the works we barely know anything about. Yeah, there is one coming from Weta. Weta and, oh gosh, what's the other company? Private Division. That's what it is. Yeah. Weta and Private Division. That was announced a while ago, and we know nothing about it. So I don't know if it's like open world. I would love to see an open world Lord of the Rings game. There's so many good open world games coming out in recent years, and I'd love Lord of the Rings to be thrown in the mix. Do we know the price for Return to Moria? We do not. I would imagine that would come out sometime in the next month-ish, something like that. Surely before too long, because pre-orders would have to go up pretty soon. Brown Eyes, any update with new Third Age movies? Peter Jackson, perhaps. I would love it if Peter Jackson came back to at least executive produce. Like, I could understand if he doesn't want to, take on the editing duties. I would love to see him, do one last direct one last film in Middle Earth. That would be pretty cool. But even if he doesn't, I'd love to see him executive produce some stuff. But no, nothing. Yeah, there's been radio silence on that front. I would imagine we won't hear anything about that until after all the strikes are over, at least. Maybe not even until, who knows? It might be next Comic-Con or something. Um, Speaking of which, next Comic-Con could be legit. Like with War of the Rohirrim getting delayed to December, that puts Comic-Con now front and center for a trailer reveal, an experience, some kind of presence there for War of the Rohirrim. Then you've got Rings of Power Season 2, which a lot of folks think will probably land in September of next year. And then, gosh, if could you imagine if Warner Brothers then, announced that Peter Jackson was coming back to Middle Earth for their films at Comic-Con as well? Um, Man, that would be a huge Lord of the Rings Comic-Con, and I would be totally there for it. Because there was hardly anything Lord of the Rings at this Comic-Con. I mean, aside from the Torn booth and party and stuff, that was about it, which was awesome. And the Weta panel too. Yeah, the Weta panel, man, there's a lot of people there for the Weta panel for good reason. Those guys have amazing stories, and I really hope they come back next year. That would be really cool. Yeah. Yeah, it could be a really cool Comic-Con, guys. So, put it on your calendars. I'm calling it now. Next year, it's going to be a big Comic-Con for Lord of the Rings. I hope. Oh, it says 40 on the Epic Game Store. Not realize it had a price yet. Oh, yes, you can pre-purchase it on the Epic Game Store for $40. That is better than $60. That's what I know. That's it. Yeah. I mean, like obviously the graphics aren't like crazy, you know, uh like Jedi Survivor graphics and stuff like that, like brand new what you see in AAA games. But for a crafting game that's multiplayer online, like I think it looks pretty good. I think $40 is like as long as it's fun to play and they do a good job with it, yeah, I'm good with that. Totally. Yeah, there's multiplayer. 4 or 8, depending on what platform. So someone earlier said 4 players if you're on PS5 or 8 players if you're on PC. Corn-fed bricks. It's a fun name. I think Children of Hurin or Fall of Gondolin would be the best film adaptation for the first stage to get us into those stories. What are your thoughts? Love the channel. Thanks. Well, thanks so much. And thanks for the question. Gosh, that's tricky. So if you're wanting to do a series of films, then I think you'd have to start earlier than either of those because those are kind of the two that close it off. Um, yeah, gosh. The other one, Baron and Luthien, comes before either of those other two. So I would think you'd go chronological if you were doing a series of films. Berserker says the news really bummed me out. Originally, War of the Rohirrim was coming on my birthday. Now I'm just going to spend it eating tomatoes, angrily lamenting Rohan has abandoned us. Nice. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. It is a bummer because yeah, it was only like what is that? 8 months off, and now it's a year and 4 months. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. We'll have to wait a while, but I mean, gosh, it's better than waiting 10 years between adaptations, right? That's what we were doing. But hey, if it's polished, like imagine it comes out and just rocks. Like I've looked at the all-time box office numbers for anime films in the US, and like it's not crazy to think that this film could be climbing that chart pretty high with Lord of the Rings name on it. So I hope they do a really good job and tell a great story. I think it's a good selection of a time period and a self-contained story, and one that a lot of people resonate with. Like there's so many people that for those original films, the Rohirrim are their favorite uh realm of people for good reason. They have some of the most epic freaking moments in those movies, and in the books. But yeah, I think it's got a lot of promise. Now it's just down to execution. All right, I'll do one last question and then we're gonna wrap up. This is just kind of a quick stream covering today's news. Nothing huge otherwise from me. Sorry, clicked the wrong one here. Do you think there's a chance of more Peter Jackson films? I hope so. That would be cool. I think it'd be great to have him come back. Because I think if Peter came back, I think that he would come back in a way where the power is going to be on his side, where like Warner Brothers needs him more than he needs to do more Middle Earth movies. So I would hope that would give him more control to say like, okay, you're not going to I'm going to have a proper production schedule. You're not going to threaten to pull the plug, like they did with The Hobbit, where he had to step in as director or they were going to pull the plug like on the whole thing. So I think there's some things where yeah, it'll be a much more favorable working environment, between him and the studio if he does come back, because that's what that'll mean. Because he's not going to sign up for more if the studio's going to cut the legs out from under him on stuff, right? Surely not. But yeah, all that to say, I hope there's a chance that Peter Jackson comes back. That'd be awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. A short stream here as we talk about a couple pieces of news. Once again, if you missed it, if you're coming in late, you can swing back to the beginning of the video. But Return to Moria, we saw some new footage. That is coming out on October 24th. That is the new adventure survival video game. And we also heard that War of the Rohirrim is delayed until December 2024, December 13th. So there we go. We get to see Middle Earth in theaters in December again, which is kind of a fun thing. That'll be the 23rd anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring. So you got that. There you go. And then other than that, tune in next Friday, guys. I will be live from Oxenmoot in Oxford, England. I didn't forget. I was trying to think of my next sentence when I paused and said England, but it made it seem like I forgot where Oxford was for a minute. Anyway, have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd in the Rings.